I want to tell you about 3 different women that I've met recently. They had a big impact on my life, even though I don't even know their names. I don't think that they would even remember meeting me, but I had something, a connection with them that made a really lasting impact on me. The first one was at a valet parking lot. I had just dropped off my car, and the woman who had dropped her car off right before me, she was bald. She had an oxygen mask or oxygen thing, and had a walker. And obviously she was very frail and very ill. And I have to admit that makes me really uncomfortable. And I was taking the easy way out that day. So I just looking at my map that I had with me and pretend, I'm really focused on this, not paying any attention to her. And she saw the map that I had, and she looked over at me and said, come on, I'll show you the way. And I was just really surprised that somebody who obviously was that weak would use some of her energy to help me when I was a complete stranger, and honestly, I was being kind of rude to her. I learned from her to not judge people by their appearances, and that people who seem weak are actually sometimes a lot stronger than you know. The next woman, I was on an elevator. I had been at an appointment that went much, much longer than I had thought it was going to, and I was frantically checking my phone for my emails, see what I missed while I was gone. And this woman asked me if I'm a Bronco fan. And it was one of those days where I was like, I don't want to get into a conversation with a stranger. So I said, no, not really, just, kind of leave me alone thing. And she said, oh, that's just too bad, because now I have to find someone else. And so I, curious enough finally to look up, try to figure out what she's talking about. And she said that, you could tell she was really frail and weak too. She was leaning on her husband. And she said that she knit these hats every day, and she wouldn't leave until she found someone to give them to. And I just thought to myself, it would have been so easy if I had paid attention to her just that little bit when she started talking to me. If I had looked up from my phone, got out of my own world, and paid attention to her, I would have been able to make her so happy. Because the act of giving does a lot for people. And that was, a big, big wake-up call to me, that even strangers, you need to pay attention to what's around you. The third woman, I was driving, and it had been a long day, and I honestly wasn't paying as much attention as I should have. But I was turning right, and this woman just comes out of nowhere, and I hit the back of her car. And, one of those, just a little minor fender bender, but you still got to deal with it. And I'm thinking, I look, and the driver's this, total stereotype of the little old lady. Barely seen over the wheel kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this day is just going to get worse. And we get out of the car, and she walks over to me and said, honey, you were in the bike lane, not the turn lane. And I just like, oh, I can't believe I did that. It was so obvious. It was completely my fault. My mind just wasn't on what I was doing. And I started to try to apologize to her, say, let's take care of this. And she looks over to my car, and she kind of rubs it. She's like, it's just a little scratch. You'll buff right out. It's nothing to worry about. And I said, well, what about your car? And I start to walk over to her car, and she grabs me, and she says, no, we're not going to do that. I'm like, what do you mean we're not going to do that? So it's just a thing. It doesn't matter. We're not even going to look at my car. And then she reaches over and gives me this big hug and said, you need to be a lot kinder to yourself. And I was thinking, how does this happen? I hit somebody's car, and she's being this nice to me? And I was just amazed. And honestly, I haven't gotten that scratch fixed on my car, because I look at it every morning. I go by there and kind of rub it. Like, yep, I remember you. And I don't think I'm ever going to get it fixed. So where I meet people like this, before I give you that, I need to give you a little bit of a background so you kind of understand where this is coming from. A couple years ago, I started having a lot of trouble with just this unexplainable fatigue and pain, just could not figure out what was going on. I'm used to being able to do everything. I work full time, I have 3 daughters. this is what I do. I like to be accurate.